false allegation that should be enjoined. And that's the limited circumstance in which the court should issue that type of relief. As to 1E, Your Honor, I don't think as written, I would have a huge problem with the court reconsidering and removing that because it is so broad and general. And really the other provisions that Judge Kern allowed relate to specific statements of drug pedophilia, etc. that really I would not have a problem with reconsideration of E. I would reserve the right to come back in when he starts making, if he starts making other outrageous allegations of crimes, but I don't have a problem with the removal of E as written. As to Roman numeral 5, Your Honor, well, I think if an injunction issues, or because there is an injunction, he shouldn't help people try to violate that. So I think that should stay in force. But again, I don't have a problem with 1E, but I do think that this is the limited circumstance in which an injunction of this type should continue. But I go back to my initial statement, Your Honor. If you review the record on the default, he simply hasn't complied. And I know it would be very easy to say, for the court to say, well, he doesn't get to offer any documents at trial because he didn't produce any documents. But I've been doing this for 21 years, and we serve documents because we want to know what he's going to put in. It's going to be harmful. But more often than not, the other side has documents that are going to help me. I don't know what he has. He's never done a response. I think this case should be over. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pierce. Let me just ask another question, Mr. Pierce. With regard to the provision under Roman numeral 3 that was added by this court, the final sentence of that paragraph beginning with the language defendant is further prohibited from attempting to cause, etc. It relates to alleged interference with contractual or advantageous relations with the agreed companies. To the extent that that paragraph may implicate, that sentence may implicate First Amendment issues, what is your position about that?
That, Your Honor, relates to, I think, the town of Goldstein case, town of Brookline versus Goldstein. That's related to harassment. You don't have a blanket right to contact people and make outrageous statements. And so we're not, you know, he can post his opinion that this project should never have gone through. But contacting our customers, contacting our employees, it's just way beyond the pale. And I think that should continue to be part of this injunction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, you wish to be heard.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I've never said they've sold drugs to children. I've said that there's 16 cousins that use one location. They were born between 1953 and 1967, so they all grew up together, partying as people do, and contaminated each other by smoking pot with each other, and then they also brought in neighborhood kids and smoked pot with them. I never said they sold drugs to children. As far as selling drugs, I don't even know if I ever published or whatever, but I know my knowledge of their selling drugs was just that John Senn Jr. had a restaurant and sold drugs out of that in Nyack. But I want to go, my first time in court was actually with you. I was not part of the, I did not participate in the thing with Judge Kern. I sent an attorney. And the injunction that you signed and the one that Judge Kern signed, he typed up. I mean, she didn't type it up and you didn't type it up. I think that's very important to know.
Typically, judges often ask the parties to draft proposals for injunctive relief and other types of orders that are issued. So there's nothing unusual about that, just so you know that.
Yeah. There was only about a week in between those two court dates, and we did turn over a substantial amount of information, and it's in the file. I mean, all you have to do is look in the file, and there's, data documentation from my attorney, along with a whole bunch of attachments, including the Gloucester police notes that prove that John Senn Jr. was arrested on an out-of-state warrant as a fugitive from justice on $100,000 bail. And all you have to do is call Jen Whaley of the Gloucester Police Department, 283-1212, and she will tell you it did occur. Also, we in that week, we turned over affidavit from John McDonald about prescriptive rights, and he's the next door neighbor, which I take care of their summer home, which I take care of, his place. We also turned over affidavits from Russell and Melissa Hobbs, who also verified that their homes were illegally acquired and destroyed. I've given video to Mr. Jones with Russell Hobbs testifying his home was stolen. I've turned over a lot of documentation, so Mr. Pierce is just false in saying that I haven't turned over anything. What really is unbelievable is he keeps saying that the development started in 1998. It started in 1981, 82, when they proposed 70 condominiums, and we've been fighting for 26 years. Our first neighborhood association president was Marie Naismith, who's now 84 years old. She was driven out of the neighborhood by his clients, and on May 24th, 1999, I was elected by 140 people unanimously to be the new president and major spokesman. And I'm just doing my job and protecting my neighborhood.
All right, Mr. Smith, do you want to address yourself at all specifically to the purpose of this hearing today in regard to the possibility that the board has raised of reconsidering the provisions of the injunction that's presently in place?
Well, like I said, I have a job to do. I'm elected to do it, to publicize on behalf of the neighborhood, to speak on behalf of the neighborhood. And anything, the only thing I've ever agreed to is not to have communications with his clients, and I think any order should be mutual in that effect, because last year, I think it was May 23rd of last year, I was mowing my godfather, John McDonald's lawn, and one of his clients came out screaming at me. So I think it should be mutual.
Well, I'm not going to take up the possibility of issuing any additional orders unless I have a motion in writing as the rules require.
Yeah.
But thank you, Mr. Smith. And with that, I will take this matter under advisement, and as well as the matter which I already have under advisement. I hope to be able to get a decision out to you both very quickly on both matters.
Your Honor, may I just read one sentence from Mr. Smith's website?
Yes.
Here's what he says. Time Rock developer and former math professor Raymond Senn is a child predator. For over 15 years, he preyed on the students, giving them illegal drugs. So I guess maybe he didn't say he sold the drugs, he gave them drugs. This is what he's called in the class. Absolutely false.
That was August 2006 when it was on the website. It's on the website now. But I have seen Raymond Senn smoke pot with students from the Saddle River Day School. When I was 17 years old, I went down to see a Phil Collins concert with Raymond Senn, who picked up two of his students, 14 and 15 years old, and went to the concert and smoked pot with one of them. I did not smoke pot that day. I do not smoke pot, but I witnessed him smoking pot with his student. And he told me he did it for years.